everybody, my name is Colin239 and welcome back to another video, and it is that time again. Everyone's favorite Yu-Gi-Oh season is upon us, and that is Banlist season, and this one's looking to be quite interesting. Now, why is that? Well, it's because the TCG is currently in a very diverse metagame right now. I'll put on screen right now the top 64 of YCS Bologna that just happened this past weekend. And as you can clearly see, there's a shit ton of decks in this format, like a lot of decks in this format. And that's what makes this ban list interesting. How do you approach this next ban list when there's so many decks in this format? You don't want to just go after one deck, because if you just go after one deck, it's just going to be the same format without that deck. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. This isn't going to be a ban list prediction per se. I'll do that later this week if you're interested in that. But this video is more to cover how is Konami going to approach this next ban list. I have come up with 6 ways they can approach this next ban list. I'll start off with the one that is least likely to happen, and I'll move up to until we get to the most likely to happen. So yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Alrighty, so the first approach they can do with this ban list is, well, they can just do nothing. They can just look at all the diverse top 64s in their YCSs, and they just say, hey, that's a sign of a healthy metagame. We're not going to change anything, and release a ban list that just completely does nothing, or they just delay the ban list until something like after Phantom Nightmare or something like that. Now, I think this is most likely not going to happen. Why do I think that? Well, one, if you release a ban list that does nothing, that's just going to piss off the fan base, right? Look at the last ban list, where the only thing that really happened was Castria Riseheart getting banned. A lot of people were pissed at that, even though it ended up resulting in this format we're in, where it's a super diverse metagame. A lot of people were pissed at the last ban list because it just didn't really hit everything. It didn't hit enough, right? Only hit one exact card. Even though that card was a problem for the game, people want to see other cards being hit as well. So that probably will not happen. But if they delay the ban list, I think that most likely will not happen either, just because I think Phantom Nightmare is enough of a game-changing set that you probably want to release a ban list before that point and get people to actually buy Phantom Nightmare to sell your product and stuff like that as well. So this is the least likely option, where they just completely do nothing with the ban list. I don't think it's going to happen. It is an option that they can consider, especially in a diverse metagame, but I think it's an option that probably will not happen. The next thing they can do with the ban list is just do a Crucifixion list. They can just look at every deck in this format and just say, you know what? We're hitting every fucking deck in this format. Basically similar to what they did with tossed format, right? Now, I also don't think it's that likely for this to happen either, just because, number one, we haven't been in this format for that long. This is basically our 3rd month of this format, and toss format lasted for nearly a year, not like 9 months around that time. So I don't think we've been in this format for that long where it justifies having a Crucifixion list, even though it'd be very cool to see. I don't think it really justifies having a Crucifixion list. Another thing you have to consider is Maze of Millennia and Phantom Nightmare are coming out around the corner as well, and those sets contain cards that current decks can use as well. And if you probably want to sell those sets, you probably don't want to go after the decks that can use the cards in those sets. So again, it's something you have to consider, but it probably will not happen. The next thing they can do with this ban list is just go after problem cards. Go after cards that prevent people from playing the game. Something like Calamities, and something like Dimensional Shifter, and something like, you know, the Gimmick Puppet Clock or something like that, right? Now, I think this is more likely to happen compared to our other 2 options I've discussed, but not that much more likely, just because I honestly don't think there's that many problems with the format, right? Like, obviously Calamities exist, and Shifter and the Gimmick Puppet exist as well, but the problem is you probably don't want to go after Calamities, because the only deck that's really playing right now is Centurion, and that deck just got released, so you don't want to go after a deck that just got released, and Calamities is really the only reason why to play that deck in the first place, so they probably won't go after that. Something like the Gimmick Puppet there's a lot of outs to it. DD Crow, the Bestials, they all exist, so there's an out to that. Shifter is weird. Like, Shifter is one of those cards where, yes, it is a problem, but when you can look at the top decks, like Rescue can pretty much set 4 and pass under Shifter. Unchained can pretty much do their combos under Shifter. Sure, Tier Limit can't, but like, Tier Limit is Tier Limit, right? A lot of people don't like Tier Limit. But we've gone through multiple ban lists where Shifter hasn't been hit, and I really don't think they're really going to hit Shifter this list as well. You could be naming things like Floodgates as well, but I don't think there's any Floodgate that they're going to hit this next list. Like, you could probably name Featherstorm or the Mayakashi card because Transition Rollback is coming out, so you probably want to hit those cards. But I think if you want to sell Transition Rollback and sell Mesa Millennia, you probably don't go after those cards just so you can sell Mesa Millennia. So it's an option they can for sure do, but I honestly don't think it's going to happen. The next thing they can do with this ban list is do a resurrection list. They can look at the metagame, see it's a diverse metagame, and just go, you know what? Let's take cards off. Let's see what happens if we take some powerful cards off the list, right? Now, I've actually made a video in the past discussing this type of list, right? I'll put it in the link in the description down below if you want to watch that. Now, I actually do think it is plausible for it to happen. Well, why is that? Well, it's because they kind of been doing this in Master Duel, right? In Master Duel, they took off the Dragon Rulers. They put Barrage to 3. They put Zodiac Trident to 3. They took off MX Saber Invoker, right? They kind of been experimenting by taking cards off the ban list and seeing what happens, right? Now, I think that is very plausible for this to happen in the next ban list, but I don't think it's going to be a major resurrection list. I think it's going to be like minor stuff, by like taking off like Kirin, since, you know, the Magic Specters are getting new support, or taking off something like the Dragon Rulers and shit like that, because it's been happening in Master Duel and shit like that. So I think it is a plausible thing to happen, but I don't think it's going to be a super big resurrection list. I think it's just going to be like a smaller resurrection list, but it is a plausibility that you have to consider. The next thing they can do with this ban list is go after consistency cards. So they look at the diverse metagame and go, we like this, we love it a lot, but we want to calm down the consistency just a tad bit. So they go like limit Pot of Prosperity, limit Emergency, limit like Tour Guide, limit like Fenrir, because Fenrir is being played in every single deck right now. They kind of do what they did to Dragon Link in the last list, where they hit Magna and Chaos Space, but you pretty much still have the deck. You can pretty much still get to the same end board, but you're just going to have a little bit less consistency in the deck. Now, I do think this is most likely going to happen just because they do want to sell Phantom Nightmare and Mesa Millennia, and decks in this format will play those cards out of those sets. So you don't want to destroy the decks in this format. You just want to go after the consistency, so they're a little less consistent, but you can still sell your future sets, right? So I think this will most likely be happening, but I think there is one more thing that is more likely to happen than this option. The last and final approach I have for this ban list is just, well, a combination of everything I just said, right? So this is how I think the ban list will shape out, right? So at the ban section, you'll have like the problem cards that probably shouldn't exist, right? The cards that prevent you from playing the game will most likely be in that ban section, right? And then at the limited section, that's where you have like the consistency hits, like the pot and the emergencies and the tour guides and stuff like that. That's where the limitations are going to be. And also another thing for the limitations are going to be the resurrection stuff that they take off the ban list. That's where you see something like the Kirins and maybe the Dragon Rulers coming off as well. And then after that, you maybe see some decks that get left untouched as well. I think this is the most likely thing that they will do in the next ban list, where they hit problem cards that shouldn't exist. They'll limit consistency cards, they'll take some cards off the ban list, and they'll leave some decks left untouched. I think this was the most likely option and probably the best way to approach when you have a diverse metagame. So yeah, that is it for the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe for more content on the channel, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.